Dustin Mangas, and I have the wonderful Dr.
Gus Arrieta.
Here, ENT specialist. How else do you say that?
Otolaryngology, or extra credit, otorhinolaryngologo.
We're about to have a really fun conversation, and let's get to it. I know you have your own little thing going on, so I'd love to
Sure.
kind of get into that and kind of how your pre-acquisition, post-acquisition, and how you think medicine's changed. You were on the original board, so you did have some background in acquisition part, so I think that's interesting. We're kind of building this around helping people free themselves and then become kind of viable. I think businesses have to scale at a viable way. You don't have to sell, but if I were to come to your group as an ENT, I'd want to have it set up to have the best opportunity to get the best bang for the buck.
Well, I think the other thing is optionality. Because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or whatever. Either way, you still wanted to be able to have some options to do something. So
correct. And I think I know this personally from obviously, working with physicians and medical devices. I used to try to help them meet other doctors and referring, and also through the scaling Pure. Like I know there's not a heavy emphasis in medical school on business.
There's a zero emphasis. At least when I was going through. I don't know if that's changed. That was a long time ago. But yeah, no, there's zero. You don't know anything. I mean, and I think I don't think it's fair. I get it on one side, right? Because all you want to do is tunnel vision, be the best doctor you can, know everything you possibly can. But there's a world out there that you get out and you're like, oh my God. Like, no one talked to me about what specialty. No one talked to me like why. Nobody. I just kind of fell into it. I don't know how other people do it, but I kind of fell into it. I mean, I had some ideas of what I wanted to do, but.
So your inspiration came in medical school when you were doing your rotation?
No, my uncle.
Okay.
Is a retired OBGYN.
Okay.
I used to follow him around, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is what I'm going to do. This is second year of college, something like that. So I in high school I thought I was going to be a Navy SEAL.
That would have been cool too.
I probably have more things broken. Me too. Yeah. And I applied to the Naval Academy. That whole thing didn't happen. And then I went to UM, and then my uncle was like, I started following my uncle around. He was like a mentor, and he's an OBGYN. I thought I was going to be an OBGYN, and I went to UM, and I went to my first delivery, and I was like, yeah, dude, never again. I'm not doing this for a living.
I have two side notes to that. So side note number one, the Naval Academy came to watch me play, and they're like, athletes are treated differently, is what they told. My mom was in the stands. And I went there a couple times to invitationals, and it went pretty well. I was like, I don't take orders. Not doing that.
Well, you're married.
So stupid. So stupid. Yeah, whether it's that, or you're in business, or you have patients, or like right now they're going to order me around, like whatever, right? So like it was such a silly way, but I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was like, I don't want anything family. I don't want any of that stuff. I just want to go and do something badass, right? And they loved, and SEALs, the #1 recruited sport is actually water polo.
Really?
So like I had both of those things. Obviously, you have to be a little crazy to play water polo, and it's heavy in the water, right? So like that's one thing. And the Naval Academy is gorgeous. So that's one. And the second thing is, I always found like OBGYN to be so interesting from a male's perspective. I'm like, dude, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Like delivering and then like your day-to-day patient care, like what?
Well, I don't know because I didn't do it. So.
Lucky man.
I just couldn't do it.
Lucky man.
I just didn't. It was too much chaos.
Yeah.
Too much chaos.
So that was it for that. And then?
And then, actually, Rich and I share the same mentor, and I can't remember his name right now. He's going to kill me. But
we will edit that in.
Yeah, please keep that. And third year, almost end of third year, which is already almost late to start thinking about residency, I had a 1 week ENT. So I went through all the usual, I'm going to be a neurosurgeon. And then I spent like a month walking around the ICU at Jackson. I was like, I can't do this every day, which is not an actual, real portrayal of what they do, but that's all you get, right?
Right, you get that little window.
Yeah, and it was not a good window. And then everybody in the ICU, everyone's messed up. Not for me. Not a happy place. And then trauma surgery, right? Special forces trauma. And then I saw an old guy walk around the hospital. He was like 70. He was a trauma surgeon, trudging to work. And I'm like, okay, don't want to do this either. But nobody tells you any of this, by the way. You just kind of like, look around and figure it out. And then I spent a week on ENT. And those guys worked like crazy. They were all smart. They all hung out together afterwards. They all went out, grabbed some drinks. And I was like, this guy seemed pretty happy. This is pretty cool. That's how it happened. I know I wish I had a better...
That's okay. I think of like, I had, obviously through my device career, I had a lot of connections. So every time I get hurt in sport, I like walk into the ortho pit, like that you're not supposed to be in. I won't say where that was, but and those guys were like always having a good time. I'm like, I could see that, but I was like, do I go? No, I'm good.
Yeah, well, ortho's always the bro guys, you know what I mean?
I was like, dude, they were like, you're not gonna listen to me, are you? I'm like, no, probably
Well,
not.
it's the
I
whole
appreciate
order
you
thing
telling
again,
me,
yeah.
like, it's probably gonna heal, not right, and
Yeah.
I have like 2 weeks left.
Well, at least you had the inside scoop.
All right, so you decide to do an ENT off of a week, right? There's no background in business.
No.
In medical school.
Zero.
Yeah, which I find to be really interesting. I know some physicians are seeking that or doing MBAs and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like jumping into the real world.
Yeah, I God bless them, but I don't know that. I don't know how you focus on being in medical school and doing an MBA. It's just that's a tough thing, man. It's a tough thing.
How? And maybe it's because of some people. I guess you guys do so much school and so much training. What's like a little bit more? I mean, maybe that's the way some of those people look at it. But I still think nothing wrong with MBAs. I think
No. I think it's great.
super
I just
awesome.
think it's tough.
After doing 10, 12 years between training and school,
Well, you got to pay off your loans, all that stuff. That ends up becoming a factor too.
And I think too, like and this is my personal opinion. You're taught to like take care of the patient, and you kind of don't. You hyper focus on that. I think you were talking about
Yes,
that a little
that's
bit
what
earlier.
happens.
And so you come out, and it's almost like you are ripened to be taken advantage of. And maybe that's why most physicians don't last more than 2 years at their initial job. Almost like the vast majority. And maybe that's why. They jump in, they're super excited, and it's like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. And it's like a taste of the real world.
Yeah, but I think it happens before that. Because I think, like you said, all you care about is, I'm going to be the best surgeon, take care of everybody the best. And they're like, okay, go. You got to sign this contract. And you're like, okay, fine, I'll just sign what, and like, yeah, maybe you get somebody to look at it and they tell you a couple things, but you just want to go to work, And then the shine wears off, right? Not for me, I'm still there. But I think that happens. I think that's got to be part of it, You don't even think about it. You're focused on being a doctor.
And I can even tell you from like my personal experience, because I hired a few different lawyers to look at some contracts, and like a normal contract in medicine is not a normal contract anywhere else. Well, that's normal, these crazy non-competes and stuff and all these things. That's just normal. Go ahead, like it's pretty good money. You see like a six-figure, although you're $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in debt, you get this multiple of six-figure income. You're like, okay, cool, and you just go. And then when things are not shiny, you're like, what did I say? I always say the contract comes out
That's right.
when things aren't going right. And there's two sides of that. As a business, you have to protect yourself. But on the other side is like, you're like, oh man, okay, I thought I was gonna be happy here. I'm not, and I'm not in the right place.
My brother's an attorney, or was an attorney. He's doing something different now, but he was always telling me, don't do this. Don't worry about it. He's always right, or most of the time.
My attorney is it's been a while, thank God, but I'll be like, yeah, dude, you were right. He's like, I told you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, dang it.
Yeah, but it's my brother, so he's always like, I told you.
It's a good friend of mine from college. And he's like, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, dude, yeah, I hear you. And I do it anyways. And a few years later, it's like, you're right, dude. He's like, I told you so.
Except it's my little brother, so, he's ripping back on me, so it's okay.
That's okay.
I deserve it.
It's okay. So you leave there, you go through all the ENT training, which takes how long after med school?
5-year residency.
5-year residency. Okay, and it includes some surgical aspects, stuff like that.
Yeah, we're a mix. So
yeah. So if you don't know, ENT stands for
ear, nose, and throat, or otolaryngology. Which
nobody knows that.
Wait, it's even better in Spanish. Otorrinolaryngologo. Come on, man.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It took me a little while back in the day. I was like, who is that? I was
Yeah.
like, this is the same thing.
Ear, nose, and throat works a lot better. ENT.
ENT, super easy for everybody out there, for anybody that's not a physician, but or medical practitioner. But so you decide to jump into that. So you jump into a practice, or did you start on your own?
No, I joined South Florida ENT, which was a conglomerate of ENT guys that had come together a couple years before I got there, and has obviously grown exponentially. So I kind of was swept up with that growth, fortunately. So, good group of guys.
So you joined that. It's at the time privately held, right?
Privately held by us.
Okay, privately held by you. You guys did you walk in and it was like overflow and they just started loading you up, or how did you grow your practice when you?
No, it wasn't like that at the beginning. In fact, I got a good buddy who's a plastic surgeon.
Okay.
The best guy in Miami, Andy Bustillo.
I love it. Andy does great work. Actually, I've definitely.
It's a plug, bro. It's a plug.
Dr. Miranda and I were talking about that earlier. That I have to talk to him.
Okay. All right, I'm plugging him away.
I hope he's still around when I get all old and ugly. You make me look good. But,
maybe. So actually, we started together, and I remember we would call each other and be like, "Dude, I've been on the internet for like 3 hours." I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna make my salary. He's like, we're like nervous, Yeah. And then, I just did it the way everybody else does it. You take care of people as best you can, and be around, be nice, be available, and do a good job. That's how it kind of works. And then, fortunately, I was in a big group, and they started to get overflow, and you start picking up a practice that way. Obviously, it helps to be hungry.
So define what hungry was for you at the time.
Walk around the hospital, go to the lunchroom, hang out. Any cases nobody wanted to do, I would do them, that kind of thing.
And then that just started word of mouth, referrals. People started getting to know who you
that
are.
kind of helps. And so.
Okay. So then your practice grew. So what year was that?
2005.
Okay. So 2005, you joined a private practice. It's on the up and up. You're growing your practice. You're doing everything you can to grow your practice. Do best by the patient, so I think that's where that comes in. It's so important. And medicine's changed a lot where it's hard to do that for the patient often. And so you see some specialties or non-specialists will have to see so many a day. That's not always easy to do that. But anyway, so you do all the right things just like you're taught. You're kind of learning as you go. You join a private practice, and then what happens?
We were there. I was there. The dates are fuzzy.
That's okay.
But as we grew, a decision was made to shop us to private equity.
Okay.
Just because concern over hospital organizations growing in the area. How do you keep up with that? Can you fend them off, or do you become part of them? We didn't want to do that, and so private equity seemed like it was going to be the choice that everybody wanted at that point. Like everything, there's internal discussions back and forth with that.
Okay, so you guys are understanding that, because I want to say an article came out recently, may have changed in the last 2 months, but more or less 73% of all practices are owned by a hospital or a corporation. And then a corporation obviously includes private equity and all these things, right? So
100%.
So this is now. I don't think it was there 10, 15 years ago.
It wasn't, but I think it's even more true today. It's just very, very hard to open up shop. So kudos to Dr. Miranda, right? To open up shop by yourself. The insurance companies will eat you alive, right? With reimbursement contracts because you're by yourself. You have no leverage. Right? That's difficult. Running a practice is extremely expensive, especially if you go the insurance route.
Right.
You get your, this bill got sent back. You got to fight it. You got to pay somebody to fight that. You got,
Right.
all that stuff that goes into that. And just, I think I guess it's doable, but it's a very arduous task. So I think you plug into the machine, right? And I think what's happening now is it's become, I think that's the thought process. The default thought process of everybody finishing school now is just, I'll finish getting trained and I'm going to go work for whoever it is, Whether that's good or not, I think there's arguments to be made on both sides, Part of it is if you go work for the machine, you're not worried about paying the bills and your employees and, everything else that goes along with that. You also do lose a lot of autonomy and, fortunately, where I'm at, we haven't had any clinical interference, but I could imagine that could be a problem somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of people, even people I have interviewed personally to come on board for scaling, stuff like that stay where they know just because they know it, right? And even though they're not happy or these things, it's so interesting because the community knows, you should talk to so-and-so. They're not happy. They want to move.
Yeah, that happens all the time.
And it's like, dude, and you reach out and they're like, I'm not. But they don't want to go. And and one of the main things I heard, it was part of it was being underpaid, overwhelmed with patients. But one of the things that kept coming up is I don't want to leave my patients. I was like, which was interesting, right? So that comes back to the core of treating your patients. But it's like, man, and those people either stick to it and stay, in that relationship, or at one point in time they break off or try to.
Yeah, I just think that's a tough way to go through life.
It is, right? Like, you're unhappy.
That.
You told me you're unhappy. You don't think you make enough money, and you still won't leave. Okay.
And you're there. It's the majority of your life. You're at work.
Right, and I think it's just because my personal belief is you are just so taught to take care of the patient. That's priority, that you suffer. So some physicians, not all, will suffer through that and deal with it. And
listen, I think there's obviously a loyalty issue to the patient and the guilt of oh my God, I can't leave him. But I'm sure that there's ways to do something around that and bring your patients with you potentially. I don't know. Thank God I haven't been.
You can. I know how to do it. But it's not easy. Not all of them are going to come, depending on what kind of practice you join, or if it's insurance-based or direct primary care. So did you, when your group decided to start shopping around, did you guys have everything together, your systems in place, your marketing, you understood all the financial dynamics of your practice?
No.
Or you just knew that because we're a group of ENTs, we're valuable? Or was it a mixture of both?
It was both. So we had a corporate structure. I would say it wasn't the corporate structure that was perfectly prepared to go to market. I didn't even know what that meant back then, to go to market and all the diligence that was involved. It wasn't, I don't think that we went into that understanding exactly what all those steps were. We're also a board of 10 doctors on the board. I'm like, God, what a nightmare. And then our poor, C-suite was, I'm like, these guys had to deal with 10 or 12 of us at once. I'm like, that's just a nightmare, right? And to be fair, we were all working every day focused on taking care of patients. So What do we know, then all of the transition happens and we get bought and then you start understanding everything. And fortunately, I'm friends with a couple of the guys that are on the board directly and intimately involved with that and are smart enough to understand all of that. So that helps.
So you got probably an MBA.
I don't know about that. No, I did not. But I don't want to slight those guys. But yeah,
you got a real world MBA. It's not the same.
No,
it's a real world MBA.
Yeah, that came through outside businesses. I think I've learned more from that.
Really?
For a bit, yeah, for sure.
Okay, I would 100%. Definitely want to get into that. But before we get out of this topic, because I did not bring my notebook over here, so I have to try to be top of mind. You could keep me in line too. So you guys sell to this private equity firm.
Yes.
Right. You start to learn this is what makes a practice. This is where we can scale
Correct.
revenue or whatever it is, and then they start.
They love EBITDA. It's EBITDA. The word is EBITDA.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, the multiple.
That's right. That's
it's
right.
really nice for
That's
healthcare,
right.
baby.
That's right. That's
so,
right.
Ibita. Yeah, my next dog's gonna be named that.
Yes, that's right. But if you're really like cool, you go Ibita.
Ibita.
Yeah.
It's like libertad.
That's right.
Which actually.
Yeah, it depends. It depends.
Could be bad.
Depends what side of that you're on.
Could be the war. It depends on what side you land on. Good point. So you start to kind of get into that for a little bit, right? You did a little bit of board work and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So-
I was on before. A bunch of other guys have really taken the. I don't want to. Those guys did a lot of work.
And just going through your
Yes,
your
yes,
career,
yeah.
So you did that. Were you part of that with some other acquisitions with the private equity firm? Did you
was
get
not.
into that far?
No, I
Okay.
was out before that.
Okay, so if you were to do that again, if you were to start the same group today, and let's just say it's the same time period and all that, what would you have changed before shopping yourself?
I think we would have focused. We would have organized. I think our financials probably differently. One, and two, for sure, I would have kind of spent a little more time trying to understand what everybody's positions were before this, because there were some people that were in favor, some people that were not, and it's a big group.
Yeah, and you said 10 doctors on the board, so.
Yeah, I was like, I think we were 50 when this started to happen. That's a lot of guys.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of guys. And so I think ultimately everybody except like one person went with it, but it took a lot of work to, I can't imagine what those guys must have been thinking, trying to deal with us it took a year just back and forth and everything. I think I would have educated myself and everybody else better on what the entire process, not just the transition, but what that means going forward, what that means 5 years from now, what's good, what's bad, what's not. Everybody's working all day. And then you go home and you're trying to figure this thing out in your head after hours. Everybody's tired. So I probably would have spent more time trying to better understand what goes into a transition process and a buyout and what happens later.
Yeah.
But you get told, but
Yeah, it's one thing to be told and one thing to
to
go
live
through
it.
the
Yep,
actual,
you got it.
to actually
You got
live through that. Yeah, I was. That's one thing you'll see commonly throughout all specialties and all people either work for themselves or a group. They're like, as a group, maybe not so much more because the hospital or whatever, the corporation will be like overlooking the statistics. But I was talking to someone else in your field, and they were just saying, yeah, when we do acquire, it's like, yeah, like that doctor is so busy, or that group of doctors, they're so busy, they go through the same thing. So even though I'm asking you what would you do differently, it's like the same thing's occurring over and over because you have a ton of overhead, a ton of employees to pay, you're fighting with insurance, you're getting calls at all times of the day. And you guys are specialists, so we'll chime in on that. So you already have like a specialized patient lined up for you to come and see you as an ENT. So like with all that going on, it's really hard to dive into the business.
it is. I mean, there's
tired.
Yeah, there's only so much time in the day,
tired,
dude.
man.
You gotta you want to be really good at surgery and taking care of the patients. You're getting the phone calls for they denied this. You got to talk to the insurance company in the middle of the day. You're on call. You're getting, I'm not. It's what we do every day, but it's hard to do all of that well, and then go and do some complicated business transaction well. It's just tough.
Right, because at the end of the day, what's paying the bills and what you're
Yeah.
doing is the patient care.
That's the only thing I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know some more than that.
Well, barely.
Well, now we're going to transition into where you got your real world MBA about kind of jumping into other facets of medicine and doing other things. I'm going to leave this open to you how you want to start.
Yeah,
that.
sure. No, I mean, this is kind of cheesy, but so I read a book from Tim Ferriss. I know.
Which one?
The 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah, I've been trying to work 4 hours for a long time.
Yeah.
I got it down to like.
Listen, I figured out his whole little shtick. I get it, and I
was listening to him on the way here.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
and not that you're going to work 4 hours, but the whole thing of like, there's probably different ways to do this than the only way I've ever known since I graduated from college. And it was pretty eye opening, and I was like, damn, there's this whole other thing out there.
Yeah, I love his question. What would this look like if it were easy?
I don't know.
It's so simple.
I don't know.
You're trying to like uncomplicate like Newton's law, but like it's like, okay, what would this look like?
I don't know, but tell me, please. I want to know. I want the easy one.
The easy button.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, beep,
So that kind of was, and then I had a patient. This is kind of a story. Well, I'll tell a story. So I had a patient who said, awesome lady who said, hey, you're an ear doctor. I've always thought about this invention, like the breathe right strips to bring your ear forward, and you think you would hear better? And I was like, I was also in the middle of clinic with like, trying to see 30 people, and I was like, maybe, I don't know, let me think about it. And I went home and I was like, I don't know, maybe that works. I have no idea. So I called an audiologist to work with us. I said, hey, do we have any machine that we can measure if I tilt my ear forward? He's like, dude, maybe. I went online, I found something from Harvard in 1968, some weird study. Anyway, so
There's a lot of weird studies.
Yeah, they did a lot of, there's some crazy stuff over there.
Still are.
That's where all the good stuff happened. And we started testing it, and I was like, oh my God, this thing actually makes your hearing a little bit better. And then, but what do you do now? I'm like, I don't know, I'll read a book about it. So we filed a bunch of IP, formed an LLC, got some people together, and then shopped it to a bunch of people. It ultimately commercially wasn't successful, but I learned a whole lot about LLCs, intellectual property, especially how expensive it can be, and probably most importantly is I got to meet a lot of business people as we shopped this around. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson I got from that, because I met a group of guys that I stayed in touch with, and I'm actually business partners with them still today. And if I wouldn't have done this whole thing, and my wife was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I know. I probably would have never met them. And if I would have never met them, maybe I wouldn't have had the stepping stone to do the next one, which is a lot more complicated and involved and everything else that went with it. So, I don't know. I think that's one of those lessons of like, if you push, sometimes things fall in the way. It's not what you wanted, but, you figure it out.
I think that happens to a lot of people is you're so busy with blinders on, you don't see the things crossing. And so you took a moment to like, it stuck with you, and you had a decision to make, whether to be curious or not. And I think there's that old cliche saying that I'm going to absolutely massacre. It's like more ideas die in the graveyard than anywhere else, more or less. And it's like because people don't pursue it. And then people, when they want to pursue it, they either give up, or if it's not an ultra success, which I just think you said it wasn't, then they give up. That's it. They get one swing. It's like one swing, and then it's like you just have to hit one ball. You just have to slowly bunt the ball down, play small ball, and eventually over time you learn. You met this group of people, this group of gentlemen that your partners are now with, that pushed you in a business way, that expanded the way you think. You were curious enough. Door open, opportunities open. You didn't just say, "Oh, thanks, we're done." Transactional. You liked them. You kept in communication with them. So with a person that acquired, and then that just kept stepping up and allowed you to continue to become better at your craft, whatever that was going to be, which I don't think you maybe knew at the time, or did you?
No idea.
No idea. But you already got some experience in this world.
Correct.
And so I think people are afraid to kind of try things they don't know. But
yeah, I think it's definitely that, right? But again, I'm like, did that book really open my head just to be open to it, right? And I think so. I'll give him credit. So if he ever wants to do a podcast with you, you should do it.
Dude, when we started this, I wanted to just interview all different kinds of people, right? Like, I was like, I kind of love what he does. Think about his guests. I don't know if you follow him.
Yeah, of course I do,
The
man.
guests and the people in his book, Tools and Titan. Timmy, I like you, man.
Him and Rogan, let's go. Let's do let's 4 people on a podcast. Let's do it.
There we go. And he does jujitsu, so it's perfect.
Yeah, but he probably kicked my ass.
I'm not messing with Joe Rogan. I'm definitely looking forward to his special tomorrow night. But yeah, I'll totally do a podcast with Timmy. But I read that book too, and it changed my mind. But I also do believe, like, you still have to be open to that. You had to open that book. And I think things happen. I believe things happen on purpose. You just have to seize that moment. So you do that, and were they interested in buying your product or the intellectual property?
They were going to basically take it, and we were going to do a licensing deal with them. And they were going to commercialize.
Okay.
And they started to commercialize, and you know, call center, marketing. We agreed we'd stay out of it because we knew what the hell we were doing. So,
Okay.
but you know, I'm involved obviously, and so you learn a lot of that as you stay involved in it. But I think what you said is true, right? One swing and then drop the bat. I mean, very few. I imagine that it happens, but I think very few things, and people get that lucky. I think it's some of this is grit and just dealing with the not fun stuff, which happens a lot, right? And there's plenty of times I'm like, dude, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing? You know? And that's where you got to put your head down, one, and then two, partners. Because there's a lot of times I'm like, you know, I had a co-founder, Peter, and you know, sometimes he'd be like, no, let's go. And then sometimes he'd be like, bro, we're crazy. This is not smart. I'm like, no, we're gonna do it.
So you guys are balancing each other.
Yeah,
One person brings in, one person
Yeah.
is down, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that you learn. Or did you gain some experience? But what did you learn in the marketing and the call center side of things?
You know, I wasn't involved enough that I'm anything good at marketing, but I kind of understood that you got to put these pieces to the puzzle together in the right way before you start dumping money into things, because then, you know, things fall apart. You got to go back, put them back together. Not that happened with this, but that's probably the biggest lesson I learned with it is like, look at those pieces of that puzzle well before you start kind of, because you want to go 100 miles an hour,
Right.
you know, and you got to have those things set, ready to go.
Yeah, you don't want to go 100 miles per hour in a car that's falling apart.
Yeah, bad idea.
Although some people work that out somehow.
Well, I was
some
gonna
way.
say, man, I think people do it.
Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, man, people. There's a bunch of different ways to get there.
Yeah. So you move out of that, and then where did your next venture come from?
So I was fortunate, and I don't know. There's another word there, but
Fortunate is a good word.
yeah, fortunate enough to still be friendly with my intellectual property attorney, and I did a surgical case, and I had looked over, and there were like boxes everywhere, and this was in the office, right? And I looked over, and I'm like, well, what is all this? And they're like, oh no, it's just this case, and I'm like, I'm a booger doctor. I'm like, I'm just putting something in somebody's nose. Like, this is not, I'm not launching a rocket. Like, why do we have all this stuff? And I was like, the whole time I was like, this is ridiculous. There's got to be, this is not that complicated. The procedure I was doing. It's got to be, it can be.
You guys do both, right? You do in-office procedures.
I do in-office
and sometimes surgery
yes,
centers
yeah,
or whatever,
yes.
but there's a lot of in-office procedures.
Correct. We do both, which is, I think, an advantage of the specialty, which, again, nobody ever told me when I got in, but whatever.
I only know some of this because I interviewed for an ENT medical device position.
Cool. Which company?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, you got it.
But it was cool. It was a little like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like put it up the nose thing and open up the.
Okay.
It was It just.
All right.
But anyways,
Got it. Anyway.
I decided to get out of devices.
Got
so
it.
I didn't pursue. But anyways, go ahead.
Yes.
So it's a mess. You're looking at it. You're going
So
wild.
I go straight to the. One day I called my wife, who, by the way, thank God has supported me through all this stuff, because I'm sure I've driven her crazy more than 1,000 times, and I say I'm like, I have an idea. And at this point, she's like, oh my God.
She's like,
another.
oh boy.
Oh yeah, another idea.
Every time these ideas come in, damn it,
and
call someone else.
I called this guy, the attorney. I said, I'm driving to your office, and he's like, okay. So I pulled in there. I guess sometimes being naive is helpful. I had no idea FDA classification. Just didn't even think about it. I had no idea the intellectual property landscape. I thought about it a little bit, but I just, I was like, no, I'm just got to give this guy the idea. And so I tell him all this stuff, and he's like, okay. He's like, we're going to do like a landscape analysis and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know, how much is that? And he's like, boom. And I'm like, no, just file the patent. Which, by the way, don't do it. Please don't do it this way. And it's better be lucky than good, right?
All the time.
So then this is like, this thing's been getting filed. It's been a year or two. I start thinking of other devices, and I have a list, which again drives everybody around me bonkers. But that's what they already know how to deal with me. They're like, "We'll put it on the list." I'm like, oh, "You guys are ignoring me again, aren't you?"
You have a queue.
Yeah, that's right. I understand the manipulation now.
Doc's ideas.
That's
queue.
right. That's right. So one of the medical assistants in my office was, I'm Cuban, so we have plenty of Cuban cousins. Cuban cousin of mine, and she says, "Hey, I'm dating a guy who's an engineer. He's moving from Texas. You guys love Tim Ferriss. You guys are always talking about ideas. You guys should meet." I'm like, "Okay." So we go have a beer. I know this sounds cliche as heck. I write it on a napkin. I draw it out, and we had some more beer. And then he calls me the next day. He's like, I think I'm willing to take the leap. I'll start this with you. And I was like, oh my God. I was like,
beer's so powerful.
Yeah, no. I was like, I don't know how we're gonna pay each other. What are we gonna do? Whatever. So we start this thing 50-50, and he knew somebody in manufacturing in Miami. There's like a little subculture of medical device manufacturing down here. Got a prototype done, and then we were like, well, we got it. Who else is going to pay for this? Because this is a lot of money. We don't have enough for this. And so learn about how to go raise money and what's involved with that, and dilution, and and dealing with investors and expectations and everything else that goes along with that. That's not that much fun a lot of times, right? And we raised some money and I'm going to be honest, I was like, can these two Cuban kids make a device that works on the market? We're like,
They do it in Cuba all the time. They have nothing to do there.
I know, yeah, but they don't have like the FDA and everything else.
You could have called one of them and be like, what do you guys use for your ENT surgeries? Because I know you don't have anything.
That's right. I just don't want a windbreaker in my house, okay? So halfway through, we're like, all right, we need more money than what we got. I mean, we can't do it on this. And I called those guys that we had done the ear thing, and I said, hey, when are you going to be in town? He's like, oh, I'm going to be in town in a couple weeks. I said, let's go to dinner. Talked them through it. He called me back the next day and said, okay, I'm going to come in. We're going to bring some money. And so that was the first kind of real step up to the company. And as we talked about, right, if it was easy, everybody be doing it. So we actually commercialized this thing. We hired engineers and regulatory and a sales guy. Started using it. Our first iteration of the device, we knew there were some things we wanted to change, but we just kind of were like, let's just get this to market. And it did what it did. It was safe. It worked. We had pushback on a couple of dimensions that we wanted to change, and we knew it. So we're like, all right, well, we're going to do phase 2 now, or the second gen. And we go to do the second gen, and then COVID hits. And we're like 5 guys and not a lot of money. And again, this is where surrounding yourself with the right people. We still have very smart guy who worked for J&J forever. And I'll never forget this meeting because he's like, guys, we got to pull the emergency brake. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, we're going to slow down? He's like, no, we're not slowing down. Cocoon, because we're going to run out of cash.
Right.
And he was 100% correct. I'm a doctor. I'm like,
right.
Oh, we'll just gradually slow the bucket. He's like, no, there's no gradually slow the bucket, man. It's.
And all this is while you're seeing patients.
Yes. Well, I'll get to that part in a second. Yes, yeah, trying to live a life and doing that too, with kids. And we pulled the emergency brake. We had to lay everybody off. Terrible. And you go through that. Same thought. What are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? And now it's been like 5 years, and we didn't have any cash. And COVID ends. We call our manufacturer, and they're like, hey, yeah, we can do it still. You heard of this thing called the supply chain? And I was like, I think so. What does that mean? And they're like, there's this one liner in the product. It's going to take us like 16 or whatever. And I'm like, 16 weeks? We've been frozen for like a year or whatever. They're like, no, 16 months. And I'm like, excuse me? 16 months. I'm like, well, I guess we're not doing anything for a while. So we started looking for other manufacturers. That thing opened up finally. We get our second gen out to market. We just launched, a couple months ago again. 2 of our manufacturers went bankrupt within the span of the last 4 months, so we had to. But that's it. That's always something, right? You just got to be like, okay, we're going to deal with it. 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 We raise money and all that stuff like that. But and we're not there yet. But we're doing cases. I'm excited. But it's been a grind.
And so, who's your user for that?
ENTs.
Okay, how are you getting the word out to the ENTs besides the fact you're part of a very large group of ENTs?
Yeah, so we have a CEO now. We got a sales guy, so we're on the phone. I got contacts. Hey, I want you to see something. Let my guy in. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So very organic, word of mouth. I mean, we're not big enough to be have a massive booth.
Yeah, J&J.
Yeah. I'll be in their booth if they want.
I mean. Good opportunity.
Well, they just sold off the same device company. Yeah.
Well.
Anyway, we could talk about that later.
M&As in that world.
Yes.
So you just have to hurt somebody a little bit. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So coming from that other side of sales and trying to get into those doors, that's nice for you to open the door for your salespeople. And so what is the angle on that? What did you see and what did you create compared to what you were seeing before that you're like, this is an opportunity to help
I just thought, so there's when we do, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but when we do like traditional sinus surgery, we use these very simple curved suctions and instruments all the time. They get put back in a tray, they get washed, they come out, and we do the next case with it. And, those instruments aren't costing.
Similar to spine.
Yes.
Spine does the same thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And I said, this is a balloon sinus instrument, right? And I said, bro, why can't I just put a balloon on the same instrument that gets reused every single time? And then I just throw the balloon away. That was the original concept. As one of my partners likes to tell me, there's physics. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a science.
Been trying to defy it.
Yeah, that's right. That and biology, but
biology we definitely try to defy.
And getting the sleeve to fit, all that stuff takes. That's that was the difficult part of it. So anyway, I said I want a condom with a balloon on top that I can put on whatever instrument I want, and then I can just throw that away, and we can reuse the instrument that I use all the time. That gets reused anyway.
So you would be able to stack your surgeries faster? That's one of the things?
Well, I think a couple things. One, it's simple, right? Like if I give this balloon to any ENT, they're like, oh, I know what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to put it over my curved frontal, my curved maxillary, whatever that instrument is, and then I'm going to throw it away. So it's very intuitive. It's not sticking all these things together to get it to do this or trying to find a navigation machine that molds with it. One, it's obviously cost effective because we've kind of removed the balloon from all the other gadgetry, right? And 3, I think I like using kind of more rigid stuff that we're used to using in the operating room, and that's kind of the model of what we do. So I just think it's the educational curve is very low, and it's simple, and it works. But we knew it worked. I mean, the trick wasn't. I didn't. This isn't some nuclear fusion, fission, whatever. I didn't create energy.
Right.
I just made something a little bit better mousetrap. That's it.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, I used to, and this has changed even like more currently. Is like if someone's doing it or there's a tool there already, you can improve it. There's obviously a market for it, right? There's a market for bottled water, and people keep making it, and people keep making new water bottles.
If you put it in a can and call it death water, then a lot of people buy it.
That is great. That's great marketing, right?
It's
so it's like $5 for a bottle of water. I mean, a can of water, I should say. But there's you found something, you found that, and you made it better. And they do that all the time. I don't know if this is common in ENT, but like there's all these little spine companies that come out that like a spine surgeon will become a part of that. Like, I hate this, I want to change it, and then they'll get a pat on something, and then boom, you know, and then they'll talk to their spine surgeon. So it's a similar, yes.
Well, that happens because the big guys, it takes, what I've learned is, for them to come up with one different product, you know, it's got to go through their regulatory, it takes them years and 10 times as much money. So, I mean, if I'm them, it just makes a lot more sense to go buy the guy that spent a lot less money and time and just pick it up and.
Oh, that's great. And then they pick it up. That's why startups and smaller companies will maneuver so much faster in guerrilla warfare.
Correct.
And they are so slow and moving. They rather just buy. They rather just buy a company.
It makes more sense for them. Yeah.
So what are you going to do? What have you learned, and what are you going to do as you start to scale this? What is the idea behind it?
Yeah, listen.
What's the name of the company?
Dalent Medical. You want to know the story behind that?
Sure. Maybe I don't know.
No, yeah. So we were like, what do we name this thing? I'm like, I don't know. We start going online.
Oh my God, I know where you got
yes,
this. Go ahead.
Yes,
go ahead.
yes,
go ahead.
do.
Go ahead. Tell me.
We're like, I can't find anything. We were big fans of Pitbull.
I knew it. Yes. Because I went back to what you said, the 2 Cuban guys.
Yes, So I call Peter up. I'm like, bro, Dalent ENT. And he's like, what? And he calls back. He's like, that's it. It's open. The URL's open. And I'm like, take it. Take it. So, I mean, the guys that came in were like, Dalent? And I'm like, sort of.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, gringo.
Exactly.
Do you know Pitbull?
We wanted to get him as our spokesperson. It doesn't fit the right brand mold, but you know.
Maybe.
If he needs sinus surgery, I'll do it on him.
Maybe,
sending a free offer for him.
You got your stuff going on, and he's like, Dalent.
You
know, like it's just that's it.
That's it.
That might be some fun, actually.
Yeah. I know.
So anywho's.
I don't remember where we were.
We were going. I love that part. We were going. I asked you what's in store
as
for
we
the
scale.
company, the scaling.
Yeah. So we want to, make this bigger. Obviously, scale it. Ultimately, we're not interested in creating a whole distribution capacity and sales force. So yeah, we want to get picked up by somebody that can do that. I think there's a huge opportunity for what we have in places where they can't spend a couple $1,000s on a medical device. So I think OUS outside US is a super interesting market for something like this. And if we can expand sinus treatment for everybody else outside the US and the world, that I think that'd be a pretty cool endeavor. So I'd like to check that box at some point, if possible. I also realize I'm not the right guy I'm not the big corporate chief medical officer. That's not me. And so, when they take it, they can put somebody in there and run with it. And maybe we'll go do another device or something else. I've got Rich and I got something going on too. We got another business that we started. And so, I probably want to play in that space a little bit more.
What's the other business, if you're allowed to talk about?
Yeah, no problem. It's we're medical weight loss.
Okay.
And so the original concept was we were going to do sleep management.
Okay.
And combine that with weight loss, right? Because I'm an ENT, so what I see all day is I want to get off my CPAP machine. Well, you can have surgeries, which we do, which aren't, in the right person, they're successful, but in the majority of people, we're not great at fixing that problem. You can have an implant, like Inspire, which works, but you got to have surgery. Or you can do the really hard thing, lose weight, and a lot of that'll go away, right?
I know. Off of the top of my head, at least several or a dozen people that just took the CPAP machine because this part's very difficult.
It's hard, man.
It's hard to lose weight.
It's hard. And when I have patients like this, I tell them, I'm like, all right, let's do this. I'm going to give you an appointment in 3 months. It's your goal. In 3 months, you got to come here and tell me you lost 10 pounds. And then let's see what happens. It doesn't, it's very difficult. It just doesn't happen. And then, now all the GLPs came out. And at first you're like, I don't know about GLPs. And then I'm like, no, this is a big deal. This is, I think it's a step force function to, you know what happens? You lose a little weight. Everyone's like, oh, you look good. You know what? I want to lose more weight. I want to be healthier. And if that's what it takes, great. But so that's our little niche angle there. Manu.
So you're looking at sleep and weight loss from a GLP-1 perspective? Mm-hmm. And so you're monitoring the sleep and the weight loss?
Yeah, well, we're putting those pieces together still. We're doing the weight loss right now.
We're going to talk about this offline.
Yeah, just because it's again, we had started with the sleep thing. We had a CEO going, and he, halfway through was like, raising money's hard. Having a startup is hard. He's a young guy. He had another opportunity. So we're like, oh my God, now we don't have a CEO.
Now I know why he didn't call me back.
Who? That guy, yeah. So,
hey, sorry. Didn't call me back.
And so, again, people right? So I had a good friend of mine. We had always talked about doing something together. And he comes to me one day and he's like, oh, my wife is doing this stuff with GLPs, and we think we want to go and do it, online and all that stuff. And I was like, well, guess what? I got legal and online and a platform and everything. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we're headed in that direction now. So
when you say you have a platform,
well, we had the MSO structure built out. We had, the telemedicine.
I didn't know you had like a social media.
No. I'm not a social media.
Not a social media.
I'm not good at that. So
that's okay.
You got to hire for that. Not me.
I'm not very good at that either.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
He's trying to make me good. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Great, make me great again. I think that's super interesting. I think being able to get to people online is obviously the future of a lot of medicine and stuff like that. So I want to kind of wrap this up and kind of think of if you were to put yourself in the shoes of someone that's not having the best time, that's already come out of medical school, they're not as excited seeing patients every day, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think, and I've thought about this a lot. I think one is, if you do like being a doctor, I think the first, I don't know, I mean, it took me a long time, but 5-10 years, just be a really, really good doctor, and then once because now what I can do is I have times during the week that I don't do clinic. It's impossible. I don't have enough time and bandwidth to do it. But I'm okay to say, look, I'm not going to work Tuesday afternoons and X afternoons because I've got these other things going on. But I've got a pretty stable practice and all that stuff. I wouldn't have had that the other way. Now, if you don't like doing that, don't stay doing it. But I think the biggest thing is, I'm going to mess up this one. There's something like, if you want to do something else, go where it's getting done. Go where it is, or go where it's getting done. I don't know. Go to whatever you like. Like if you like tech, go to the tech networking events, go to the meetings, go to a conference, meet people. And then, that starts to broaden your horizon, because for the last potentially 7, 8, 9, 10 years, the only thing you've ever known is being a doctor.
Right.
So you don't meet people doing that outside of that world. You don't get exposed to that. You don't know anything else about that. So I don't know. That's probably what I would recommend. So, but if you like it, do it. And if you don't like it, you got to go outside the box,
Yeah, you have to open up your opportunities, but I'd say your possibilities. And you have no idea what could come across if you're not putting yourself out there and becoming curious on things. You've started a whole new section of your life, just being curious about one thing. Yeah,
I want to attribute it, but I can't remember the person's name, but there's a essay or blog post on, you want to expand the amount of luck opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're like this, they're going down the side. If you can do this, a lot more are going to bounce off of you. And then you got to go back to what you said, right? You got to be willing to take it. That's a whole other.
That's a whole nother ballgame for part 2.
That's
Anyways,
right.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, bro. Thanks. That was fun.
Awesome.
All right.